Well, we're seeing a rise of Islamic extremism. This is not only happening in Iraq, but also in Pakistan, Sudan, northern Nigeria, Somalia.
The entire church communities, Christian communities, wiped out in places like Syria and Iraq. That's our history, that's our heritage. Those are the places we point to as the birthplace of Christianity as we know it. And they want to eradicate our history there, so they want to not just kill the people, they want to destroy the buildings.
You see that right now in the Middle East, especially in the Middle East, but also in Africa, northern Africa particularly, where people are literally being hung because of their faith. And of course, if you take a situation with a group like ISIS, being beheaded, crucified, simply because they're Christians and will not forcibly be converted to another religion, in that particular case, Islam.
You know, the situation in Iraq, this is one of the most robust Christian communities left in the Middle East. They fled because they were targeted by various jihadi groups.
There are more Iraqi Christians now in Chicago than there are in the whole of Iraq.
ISIS's purpose is to establish a global caliphate, putting everyone under Sharia Islamic law, with no exceptions.
You would think that 1,400 years that this would have been, gone, long gone, but it's coming back, it's coming back with vengeance, with far less even mercy than those original Islamist invaders.
We're seeing it now more than we ever saw before.
We're going through a period of a great wave of persecution. In fact, Pope Francis has said recently that there's more persecution today than there was in the first century of Rome.
The Islamic recruiters for Al-Qaeda-tied groups like Al-Shabaab, they're going into the slums, into the poor neighborhoods of Nairobi and other major cities in Kenya. And they're offering up jobs. They're saying it's job training. And these are people that don't have a lot of future, that don't necessarily have a lot going for them in life, and then ultimately they end up at a terrorist training camp where they're indoctrinated.
There's no reasoning, that they do not understand reasoning. They think Allah said it and therefore we are His emissaries and we've got to do it.
قوي عزيز ومجالدة أعداء الله ووفقهم ومكنهم لتحقيق غايتهم وإن أردتم موعود الله فجاهدوا في سبيل الله.
If you see the brutality that is engaged in by ISIS, what is the commonality with all of these regimes? They really target Christians.
For the first time, there will be since Christianity, there will be no Christmas in 2014 in the entire area of Nineveh because ISIS has driven out every last Christian and closed every last church.
Thousands and thousands of refugees who've had to flee Nineveh. They've got no homes. They live in churches on the floor. They live in plastic tents. They've got nothing.
Christians, at best, are treated like second-class citizens, or at worst, like in Iraq today and in Syria. No matter what they do, they cannot exist. Their churches cannot remain open. They must be killed or driven out.
What we have worked for and achieved is just being banished overnight.
The stories that we hear about here in the U.S. are the ones that are the most shocking and the most brutal, and the ones that really, they shock the conscience. You almost can't believe. It's not just a simple murder, if you put it that way, but it's done in such a barbaric way that we all take a step back and say, this is how poorly people view Christians. They don't value their life at all.
At the same time, there are Muslims who are wanting just to live a life. There are many of these people who are being annihilated as well. They are being killed in Mosul. They're being killed in these other cities because they won't join ISIS. They just want to live their life. And so they have been executed as well. So it is Christians, no question, but there's also Muslims that are suffering too under this.
They are saying this is not Islam. This is not what we stand for. And this is not what we have developed in our relationship together over the years. We love each other, we respect each other, and now there is nothing there but total isolation and destruction.
Not stopping ISIS is not an option. ISIS has to be crushed. They have to be completely eliminated. You have to defeat them militarily, you have to defeat them politically, you have to defeat them in the hearts and minds of Muslims, and that's a part of this process. It has to be eliminated.
A Muslim mob in Pakistan that's burning a couple alive in between two pieces of metal, and there's a crowd cheering that. I mean, you're talking about front lines of extremism where there are Christians being killed almost on a daily basis.
People are still getting killed, people are still getting tortured.
You've got a combination of lethality capability that previous generations that were on an Islamic conquest did not have, weaponry, sophistication, telecommunications, social media.
ISIS is serious about its business of mass destruction. And whether we are in Washington, New York, or London, we are all at risk.
Instead of dealing with slings and arrows or even bullets, you could be dealing with a situation where you have weapons of mass destruction.
They have killed people. They have chopped their heads off. They have cut little children in half. It is so painful. These were people that we loved. These were our people, and they have gone.